Hey, so I wrapped up the install on your KR Sabers Fortis hilts. So here's the hilts, all reassembled. We got our two switches here. We got our auxiliary, which is the big red button down here, and the main switch up here, which is this smaller brass button. Inside we have an Illuminated Neopixel connector. Got our D-ring here, as well as the cover tech wheel attachment. So you notice that when you unscrew the pommel, this D-ring actually kind of freely rotates. But once you actually fully screw in the pommel, it kind of locks this rotating pommel cap in place. So to access the chassis, just unscrew the pommel. Make sure you kind of cup over the bottom of the saber and slide the chassis out. So here's your removable chassis with a Verso V2. It's got a removable battery, but a recharge port, so you can just charge it with the battery in. I'm also going to be including a kill key for this saber, as well as an extra kill key for the Regus that you have. When inserting the kill key, you'll notice that it's got, not sure if it picks up on camera, but one of them has kind of like, or one of the sides has a hole in it. So if you were to line up this hole with this kind of tab right inside the recharge port, if you line it with that, it's not actually going to cut power to the saber. You want to make sure that this hole faces away from that tab that kind of sticks into the recharge port, like that. And then you just remove the kill key when you want to use it. In case you do want to keep the kill key in without cutting power to the board, you can actually align this hole there with that tab. So I'm going to line it up there, and the saber still has power running to it. So up here we have a removable chassis connector, which interfaces with the rest of the hilts, the two buttons as well as the Neopixel connector. We have a 24mm bass speaker, which ends up being fully enclosed by the pommel. On the chassis we have two switches here that we can actually operate the chassis without needing the chassis in the hilt itself. So the top button is the main switch, and the bottom button is the auxiliary switch. To insert the chassis into the hilts, you may notice that it's actually kind of stepped. There's two different diameters, and it's not exactly concentric. That's because the inside of the hilt has kind of like a weird, probably doesn't pick up on camera, but the inside of the hilt has two varying diameters and they're not actually concentric. So I needed to mimic that design here. When inserting the chassis, make sure that you insert it so that the battery and the board faces opposite of the switches. So inserting it, you'll notice that on the chassis there are also two grooves here. So one groove there, one groove there. So these grooves actually line up with these small brass screws there and there. So entering the chassis, try to make sure that these grooves align with these kind of brass screws. Just wiggle it in and then slide it in. And once it's about here, you can screw the pommel back on. So on the Verso, by default, there are about 4 fonts on there, kind of like a light side, dark side, and then a neutral font. We got our blaster blocks, flash on clash. So I'm going to insert a blade into this hilt, but the blade sock is actually really tight. So I'm going to loosen this blade retention screw over there, right underneath the shine through vents. And then I have one of my slimmer, shorter blades. It's not my usual test blade. So when inserting the blade, it's going to be extremely tight right about here. Just kind of like to push it in more. See if it makes contact with the blade. push it in more until it falls all the way into and makes contact with the Neopixel connector. And then once it's in, you can tighten the blade retention screw. So this blade retention screw takes a 1.5mm Allen key. So this is one of the fonts. This is like kind of like the green blade style font. It's kind of a blue blade. And just kind of a fire blade. A red blade. And then going back to the green blade. And then once you're done using the saber, you can remove the chassis from the hilts and then reorient the kill key to fully cut power to the board. That way it doesn't drain the battery if you're not using it. And then reinsert it back into the hilt. So there you go. There's your KR Sabers Fortis hilt installed with a Verso V2 and a custom removable chassis. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm going to include the kill key, I'm going to include the battery, and get this packed so you can pick it up whenever you're ready. And as always, thank you so much for letting me work on this, and may the Force be with you.